name's Aley. Welcome to the beautiful Coleman's Theater at the Rotary Arts Center in Corner Brook. I'm here today with a very special guest. We have Rex Brown. So just as a little introduction, which I know you need no introduction, but so I've gathered that you are from Tax Beach, Placentia Bay, and you've written a book about this, which is really cool. My dad's read it. He's recommended it.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Where you eventually moved to Corner Brook. So you're a published author, a retired high school teacher who's made a huge impact, a community arts organizer, and 2016 Arts NL recipient of the Patron of the Arts Award. You also were one of the main founders and organizers of the March Hare for its 32-year run. And these days you're involved with the Cormac Sunday concert series, which we've talked a bit about. It seems like it's running really well. And finally, most recently, I actually saw you here last time I was here for the Al Pittman tribute show, which was really lovely as well.
Oh.
Yeah, that was about a month ago, I think, right?
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
Yeah. My ability to recall things is more in the past than in the recent few days.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so don't ask me what I was up to yesterday.
Okay.
Or the score of the game when my favorite soccer team had played.
Living in the moment, for sure.
Yeah,
I respect
that's right,
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, you've played a huge role in the creative community in Western Newfoundland over the years, and it's a total honor having you here today, so thank you.
Yeah, well, it's a pleasure to have a little chat with you.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
love hanging out with young people. I spend a lifetime doing that, with hanging out with high school seniors and that. So any time that you can encounter someone a couple of generations younger, it's a treat.
Absolutely, yeah, no, I love
Just in and of itself, regardless of where things spring from there. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. I love the corner. Like, I feel like that's pretty present in the art scene here as well. There's a lot of sort of intergenerational sort of group conversations. Like, I was living in Toronto for 5 years, and it seemed like everybody in each group was like exactly the same age, and that was fine, I guess. But I love how here it's just there's so much sort of there are so many memories that people can share who've been here in the past, and just like new energy, and
Yeah,
it's
well,
really
it was
nice.
certainly never the case with the March Hare, in that we did the Mad Hatter's Tea Party for children of all ages. So
Yeah.
you'd have a lot of preschoolers there, and then of course we did the high school here. So you'd be dealing with the high school students, and then of course we did the grateful reading where we'd be hanging out with the university students, and as well among our patrons, you'd get a wide range of people. Say if you go to somewhere like Toronto, you'd have a lot of people who'd show up to some extent on the strength of the fact that they'd left Newfoundland 50 years ago.
Yeah.
But then of course you'd run into some really young people too,
Absolutely.
going, and that goes right back to the beginning with Al Pittman would attract a lot of his students, and then like my family, for example, both my children, the twins, Jill was a little bit older, but both the twins and my grandchildren, they were part of the March Hare from the time they were toddlers.
Aw,
Yeah,
that's
right.
so nice.
So, yeah, so there was always quite the range, as Al would phrase it, children of all ages.
Wonderful. Yeah, exactly. Children in spirit as well.
Yeah, that's right. Children of all ages was his phrase. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, I actually I was hoping to ask you a little bit about Al Pittman as well, and sort of how the March Hare started. I feel like you hear about Al Pittman a lot. Like I met him once when I was really young, but I was pretty young when he passed.
Yes.
And I just feel like there's this kind of lore and this energy surrounding him and surrounding kind of the March Hare and everyone involved, and Smokey as well. And it just feels kind of like there was a magnetism going on there, and lots of, I mean, there are so many amazing artists now, but there's something about the way that that's discussed and the energy that sort of strikes me as in its own in its own world a little bit.
Yeah, something that few people appreciated about Al, right? Like everybody knew his genius as a poet and a playwright and all of that type of thing. But you'd have to be an insider like myself to realize what a phenomenal organizer he was.
Right.
You know, like everything I learned about running a show and running a festival, I learned from Al, and his attention to detail
Yeah.
was just incredible. And of course, he was addicted to establishing showcases for talent, going right back to his childhood, long before I ever knew him. But he was always, you know, organizing events, and the essential ingredient of them would be that they would be gatherings. They would be opportunities for people to get together and share each other's company. And of course, he, you know, with his colleagues over at Grenfell and all of his colleagues in the literary community all across Canada and everything like that, they were all, you know, his friends. So when he was inviting people here, you know, say somebody like Lorna Crozier or Michael Andacci or something, he wasn't just inviting in a poet or a writer. He was inviting in a friend. And as much as he wanted to hear them present their artistry from the podium, even more so, he wanted to sit down and have a chat with them and spend time enjoying their company. So from the very beginning with the March Hare and under Al's influence, as much attention was given to what's going to happen before and after the shows, as at the actual literary, you know, public event itself. And Al taught me that if you have an artist coming in, for example, that you meet that person at the airport, and that you treat them, you know, in a very friendly and way, all the way until you drop them off at the airport again. And of course, you know, he paid and I paid as much attention to the patrons, the actual people who'd come to the show. You know, like you just, you know, engage them as whenever possible. And of course, you know, this was all part of the payback. You know, we were all totally volunteers, and the payback was this interaction with all of these wonderful, interesting people.
That's
you
so
know?
nice.
So that aspect of it, and I had a good chat with Stephen Brunt about that in when he was thinking about you know, organizing the writers at Woody Point, and I think to a significant degree that Stephen has bought into that, to the writers at Woody Point, in that, look, it's very, very important that this become a gathering of people and not just a show that you either present at or attend. And yeah, so you know, the word that Al used when he described the March Hare to Irish poet Paul Durcan was a gathering, and I think that pretty well describes it, and it was probably a very significant feature in its longevity.
Absolutely, that makes a lot of sense, and I love that you kind of linked sort of that spirit to the Writers' Festival, because I do think that, I mean, I've been attending the Writers' Festival since I was a kid with
Yeah.
my mom, and it is, you know, special for that reason as well. It feels like there's this kind of, it's like hospitality without pretense or something. There's this
Yeah.
community feeling
Yeah,
where,
there's a significant amount of community buy-in.
yes,
And, the writers at Woody Point, is confined to a Woody Point geography.
hmm
Whereas we with the March Hare went everywhere. We went, all the way from New York to Fogo Island and points in between.
hmm
But the key to me in expanding shows to bring them was that you'd have somebody there who really believed in the March Hare concept,
right,
and they too then would develop that into a community event. So you had that happen to a significant degree in Parry Sound and Toronto and Halifax and all of the communities across the island. They all became gatherings, and that gave a tremendous amount of satisfaction and a tremendous amount of energy to those of us who are working year round to make it happen.
totally, yeah. And I think there's something really special about sort of the arts community and the concept of gathering in Newfoundland. Like I've lived in other provinces, and I feel like the biggest thing that people talk about sort of with the arts here and just sort of the social world generally is a sense of sort of being welcomed in and just having a really good time and people being
Yes.
really friendly and sort of joyful and welcoming. And I think it's so nice because that can be discussed, but to have it sort of migrate into different provinces and different towns, and to have people really see that and kind of take the torch and sort of combine it. I think a lot of cities need that.
Well, yes, and it's not a big challenge, as you sort of hint, to do that here in Newfoundland. It might be a bit of more of a challenge, to do that elsewhere.
Yeah.
We seem to have that type of propensity, to move in that direction. And God, I hope that we don't lose it. This is
Absolutely.
one of the things that I really felt about moving here from, Corner Brook, or moving here to Corner Brook. Like, I'm a Bayman,
Mhm.
and I grew up in that type of community. And one of the things that really enamored me of Corner Brook is, boy, there's a big sense of community here in Corner Brook.
Yeah.
They really sort of take a pride in the place in a very meaningful way, and that was certainly on display for all to see during the Canada Games in 1999. But it comes out in a lot of places too, and I'm very proud to be a Corner Brooker, and I'm hoping that now that I've been here for over 50 years, that they might even adopt me.
I think you're an honorary member at this point.
Stan Draglin says that Stuart Pearson, both, of course, being from the mainland.
Mm-hmm.
Stuart Pearson said that it takes several generations to become a Newfoundlander. So I'm hoping that I can be a first-generation corner brooker.
Oh, absolutely. I think so. I think you're in.
Well,
Speaking of that you mentioned the Canada Games presence here, and also we were chatting the other day a little bit about sort of the play between that and the March Hare and one of Al Pittman's plays that he wrote. I'd love for you to speak a little bit about that, just because I think it highlights sort of some of the concentric overlaps between different community arts and otherwise.
well, back in I was recruited back in 1995, I believe it was, by Wayne Trask to become one of the vice presidents to organize the Canada Games, which of course were upcoming in 4 years' time in 1999. And I was lucky enough with which was rather thin, I suppose, March Hare involved at that stage, plus the fact that I'd organized a lot of events and that up at the Bloemfontein Golf and Country Club, to be given the cultural program portfolio. And anyway, we spent 4 years putting that together, and I think we ended up, I think there was about a $39 million budget that we were dealing with. Like, we built the Canada Games Centre and the dome out in Stephenville and all sorts of other things, to go into that, the $39 million figure. But so by 1999, I'd had a lot of exposure to organizing a really big, this was an athletic event, but my aspect of it was the cultural dimension of it. With organizing a big cultural event. So then when Paddy Monahan decided that he wanted to bring Al's play West Moon to Ireland, Al, talked me into getting on side to help Paddy with some of the organizational aspects of that trip, and in particular, I suspect, doing the fundraising thing, which of course is probably one of the least popular aspects of arts organization. It's only a few of us that enjoy the role of being a beggar. So anyway, Al recruited me, so I worked with Paddy, and after the games finished in February of 1999, and then by October of that year, we had Al's play up and running under the directorship of Ken Livingstone.
Right.
And then, of course, in November, we toured it across Ireland,
So cool.
which I believe was the first Canadian play to tour Ireland. I think that is the claim that made. I have no idea if it's correct. I suspect that is.
Wow.
So then, so that grew, that tour grew out of that. And of course, by now, where I was retired, as of, I retired, at the beginning of the Canada Games in 1999, in February. And by now, I had a lot of time on my hands, and was probably, even though I wasn't conscious of this, looking for a project.
Right.
And I think a whole lot of that, that grew in as why the March Hare grew to be the 19-show festival that it had become by 1917, 1918. Okay, so that was that. But then, of course, another connection would be the contacts that we made with such people as an arts organizer, Liam Rellis, over in Waterford, Ireland.
Right.
That was very instrumental in enabling us to do the March Hare tour of Ireland in 2007.
Right.
And of
yeah.
course, by this time, as I think we mentioned earlier, Stephen Brunt had this idea in his head of organizing what became the Writers' Festival at Woody Point, and he was a regular attender at March Hare up in Toronto, and I think he was actually down here for one or two. So really, so if you look at that, some of the an event that we organized for a Saturday night up at Bloomington Golf and Country Club, which eventually merged into the March Hare. It also sort of merged into my involvement with the Canada Games, which merged into my involvement with the West Moon to Ireland project, which simultaneously sort of expanded or evolved into this enormous expansion of the March Hare, which in turn sort of helped inspire Stephen Brunt to do the same type of thing.
Right.
So it's really interesting how all of these things sort of it's not a snowball because there's many snowballs, but they are all interconnected in various ways.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, it's so remarkable when you were telling me some of this. I was
And
like,
that would have been
no idea.
a great joy to Al, because of course what that would mean is even more people getting together.
Of course,
And Al was
yeah.
one of those people who could enjoy vicarious pleasures.
Oh,
So I'm sure, even though he died on the 26th of August in 2001, it's possible that he's still up there, pleased with how things are going.
I bet he is.
Yeah.
It's pretty like, it's so interesting to learn about all of these sort of overlaps of kind of, even in the nascent stages of the Writers' Festival, for example, like how there needs to be this kind of little spark in a community, and if that spark lights, then so many other ones light as well.
Oh yes, and you never know, what it will be. Like
No.
you take myself, like I wonder what has been the influence of the March Hare on the fact that that I became a writer. I suppose I can call myself a writer. I've got 2 books out there on the shelves, thanks to Flanker Press. So I'd never ever written, before I retired, other than I wrote a whole lot of occasional poems to entertain my colleagues in school at Herman Collegiate where I taught. And of course, I'd write for these occasional poems for people when I'd attend conferences and all that kind of stuff. But these things were all done for a laugh, and I'd write them and read them and throw them in the garbage can on the way out the door. So I never ever wrote a word that I ever figured that anybody else would independently pick up and read until after those March Hare years, and maybe all that exposure, to those literary types, it just somehow rubbed off,
Of course, yeah. I think it's infectious, and like to see people do it, and then to kind of meet them and get along with them and have discussions, it makes it feel really possible. And obviously, like you have 2 books published now,
That's
so
right,
it's huge.
It's the same type of thing, say, as if you go to universities, and I'm sure that I don't know if it's happened to you, but it's happened to me, and it's happened to a lot of people, that you end up studying a discipline that originally you had no plans to pursue,
Yeah.
but you encountered somebody, be it a professor in a compulsory course, or be it one of your colleagues that you met in the bowling alley, wherever the heck you might have met them, and they influence you. Now all of a sudden, you're going down a road that you never ever imagined that you would.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
you might end up spending a lifetime at it.
Absolutely, yeah. For me, that was sort of the classics like Greek and Roman
Yeah,
myth,
right,
and
yeah.
no idea, really before. But then learning that so much of that sort of informs a lot of literature because I've done English degrees, et cetera.
Sure,
But,
yeah.
yeah, no, I totally. It's so nice to hear about sort of all of these overlaps and kind of both the conscious ones and the community ones, and also the subconscious
Yeah.
ones. I'm wondering if you can tell me a little bit about the Cormac Sunday concert series, because this is a relatively new thing, right?
Yes, yeah. We started that up in June of last year, and then we did 16 shows all the way every Sunday until the 10th of October passed.
Right.
And again, that's one of these connections. Like the lady up there who was interested in having some music, some folk music, or more or less, come to Cormac. She happened to be Roseanne Brake, and her first cousin was Paul Dean, of course, who was a long-term March Hare stalwart,
Right.
and which is basically really where I got to know Paul really well through his involvement with the March Hare over the years. So when she was thinking about trying to get something like that on the go, Paul suggested that she get in touch with me, and that maybe I might be interested in having a little chat with her about it. So anyway, we ended up organizing all of these 16 shows, and the bulk of them were musicians that I'd hired, 1 year or another, or many years, to perform at the March Hare.
Cool.
So to that extent, the Sunday concert in Cormac has a March Hare, a definite March Hare connection too.
Right.
And now we're into the process of trying to acquire some funding so that we can continue the series in this coming year, and in particular, we're hoping that with this special funding that the provincial government's brought out in relation to next year being their come home year, that might assist us in running the concert series without driving Roseanne Brake into the poorhouse, because of course these COVID-inflicted years,
I know.
it's very, very difficult to run a show 100% on the strength of the box office, which is what Roseanne did for the 16 shows this past summer.
Oh, wow.
So if Cormac is choosing a Citizen of the Year, I'd certainly recommend her as a candidate. She's paid the price, literally.
Yeah, right. That's huge. That's a very
it
big,
is. Yeah.
very big obstacle to overcome.
Oh my heavens, yes. And of course, you will have to pay for artists. You have to pay for your technicians. You have to pay for venues, and it's also very expensive to promote, to
Of course,
advertise,
yeah.
particularly at the startup stage.
Mm-hmm.
We never ever had that problem with the March Hare because we evolved, and one year would build on the other, and we sort of relied upon this year's patrons to recruit next year's, to return
Mm-hmm.
with a friend next year type of stuff. So we were very fortunate in that way that it wasn't an item promotion. It wasn't an item in our budget.
Right, it just
So,
kind of
yeah,
snowballed
yeah, we just,
a little bit.
yeah, it just, it moved in that way, hearkening back to the years, of course, when it began,
Mm-hmm.
when, of course, Al would promote it among his colleagues, many of whom, of course, would be participants, because there was a lot of people over there who wrote and some who sang. And then, of course, they'd get the word around town and do it that way. So we didn't have to rely on newspaper and radio and TV ads, and that, all of which, of course, are very expensive.
Of course, yeah. In terms of the Cormac concert series, so you're figuring out now sort of if the next year is going to happen. Is that correct?
Yes, it's going to happen.
It'll happen. Okay,
It's
cool.
going to happen. It's just now how many shows are we going to be able to do?
Right.
And are we going to be able to acquire some funding which will enable us to bring people in from outside the local area?
Of course,
Because,
yeah.
of course, when you do that, now you've got transportation and accommodation costs
Right.
and all of that, and these very quickly
add
add up. So
Yeah.
it's a brave person indeed to do what Roseanne Drake did last year, and hope that the box office would pay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If people want to, regardless of sort of how many shows there are, I'm just wondering how people can kind of find out about, because I found it last summer. I just moved home a year ago, and last summer I found out about that sort of at some point in the summer, and I was really happy about it because Mom and I drove out to Cormac, and she was like, "Oh, there's this concert series,"
Yeah, right.
and I was like, "Oh, that's so cool!" Like I
Yeah.
had no idea at that point.
Yeah, that's what we're hoping that it's going to catch on.
Yeah.
And that people will think that, gee, this is a great way to spend an hour and a half in the middle of a Sunday afternoon.
Absolutely,
And so hopefully that'll be so, and we're sort of sticking to a particular brand of music and all of that, with this strong sort of folk music aspect to it. So it's we'll see. I hope that that Roseanne gets 32 years out of it, or
Me too.
or speaking from the point of view now of December 2021, at least 2.
Absolutely.
We'll see.
We'll see. Yeah.
Yeah.
So everyone watching, stay tuned for that.
That's right.
Is there anything else you'd like to add today before we wrap it up?
I'd like to add anything that you might that you might have any interest in, because of course I'm enjoying talking with you so much.
Me too.
I'm very proud that I've been able to keep the vow I made to myself when I retired in 1999, that I'd never again attend another meeting, and I haven't. But I absolutely love to sit down with somebody in some civilized setting,
Yeah.
and chat, and that can go on forever. So no, as I say with the as I said in the second last year of the March Hare in the intro, I I have nothing that I need to say.
Right, of course.
I have no agenda whatsoever. I never have had one. I just, want to respond to what everyone else or what anyone else is interested in having me respond to. And of course, as you and everybody else who I've ever encountered has found, that could go on forever.
Absolutely. Well, I wish we could talk forever because there's so much there and it's so interesting. But it's been a complete. Oops, I touched the microphone. It's been such a delight. Thank you so much. It's been, and I know you know you know my family a bit as well, so it's been really nice to make the connection.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for coming in today.
It's been a real pleasure. It really has.
Thank you, and thank you to Brad. And thank you to the viewers. Have a great one. Bye.